Hey, so I just wanted to make another video. Um, and so I just wanted to talk today about I remember in high school, before I ever actually really started knowing Jesus Christ, I more was a person like in the Bible where it says like, "Oh, we heard about you talking in the streets" type of thing. And I feel like, and you can find that, you can probably Google that passage and find out where I'm talking about. But more of, before I even knew Jesus, I kind of just heard about him. People, hear about Jesus a lot. You hear his name sometimes, he's a topic of discussion. And so today I just wanted to talk about to complete that thought. Back in high school, we did a rally we did a walk for sex trafficking. And I think a lot of people already, kind of get they do have a knowledge about that, you know, like a general sense about that. But I think it's important to just make aware. I think a lot of people who are in that industry, there are people who are forced into that. It's not necessarily their lifestyle choice. It's not like, kind of going into a job and applying for a position there. It's not that same thing. And so I definitely think that there's people in that industry that they don't want to be there. They don't want to do that type of thing. And I think sex trafficking is something that really needs to just stop. And I think I want to offer a way to kind of combat that. And I've heard this said a lot, and I definitely agree with that. And one way is to stop watching porn. Just, don't feed that industry. Don't subscribe to any of those videos. Don't just fuel that industry, because a lot of people that we we probably don't notice, you know, that are in that industry, they look like everyday people. They look like people that have they don't necessarily look like they're a slave to sex trade. And so I know that in the pornography industry, a lot of people, they watch it because it may not look that bad. And I think, just as a side note, I think there's a lot of things that with sin, a lot of times we in our mind, I think one way is the being deceived is that you don't really recognize it as bad. You don't really fully agree that it's bad. You kind of have you've heard a word out there, you've heard maybe someone's opinion, like, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that type of thing, whatever that sin may be, fill in the blank. But I think a lot of times with sin, like, you're not really convinced in your mind that it is bad. And so I think really that we need to speak up for people who are sex trafficking. And I think a quick way is to, hey, don't even get into that industry. Don't even watch porn. Turn it off. There's a lot of things it's just bad. It's not what a relationship should be like. And we really shouldn't be watching that even take place. We shouldn't be watching people have sex at all. It's more of a private matter. I mean, you just feel that way. I mean, whoever does it, like, out in the open, like, it's not like something that is just naturally happens in society. So naturally people already know, like, hey, it's not something to be watched. And I feel like if you can't really watch it, like, you can't really involve your family with it type of thing, like, that's when you should question, like, what you're doing. I've heard that said, like, when, if you're ever in question of whatever it may be, if you feel like you're ashamed to, watch something or do something with a family member, I mean, obviously, besides, a husband and wife, and their marital sex. But anyway, So I think, I kind of wanted to, the reason I'm really just making this video is because I want to be a voice of adding to really saying what is wrong out there and speaking up for people who they may not be able to speak up for themselves. I'm thankful to God that He has given me an opportunity to even speak up to say, something that is wrong out, because I feel like a lot of times people are just participating, but they may not speak up about, it's wrong. And so whenever God delivers someone out of doing something bad, I think it's such a blessing to even be able to speak up and say, "Hey, that is wrong. That wasn't beneficial. That was not productive for my life." And so I think a lot of decisions, need to be weighed about, like, is this productive? Is this helping me? Is this helping others? Is this helping my neighbor? And so, yeah, I just, we need, I think that is my first, thing. And I didn't really have like a kind of a setup of, what other thing that we can do for sex trafficking. I think the first thing that comes to mind would be, a safe, kind of well known organization that people can go to who are in the sex trafficking industry but want to get out. It would be great if somebody, once again, I would put this on maybe an organization that has money, or someone that has money that can set up sort of an organization where a person can come into the office. Let's say they're on the street, or they're, sex trafficking, and they may have a home to stay. Obviously they do what they do somewhere, someplace, so they may not be homeless, but let's say you have an office where people can, come to the office and say, like, hey, I want to get out of this industry, what can I do? And it would be great if that organization kind of had a job set up for them, had a place to stay for them to stay, had like a maybe even a relocation. Maybe they can just, I think sometimes, it feels good to move, from one state to another, and, just completely kind of start your life over. So it would be great for, an organization out there to, kind of even offer relocation services where, people want to, just revamp their life. And then obviously, I think maybe it's not so obvious, but I think the last thing, I think that was the second thing, for stopping human trafficking, sex trafficking. I think the third thing is, if you watch this video, I think you've heard a lot out there, but it I think it starts with the individual. Like, you have to give your life over to Jesus. You have to start doing what he says, start reading the scriptures, start applying that word and change your own life, I think that is something that could help. That's the third advice I would give, is just, hey, start with yourself. Start with, your own choices, and if you're in the sex trafficking industry, there that is a hard life. And so I would say that is, one thing that I would like to speak up about is, we need to stop sex trafficking. We need to stop that industry. And I think the main root of that cause is sin. It's lust. I think, when people want to get their sexual desires fulfilled and they don't want to do it in marriage, they, that is the industry that's fueling that type of lifestyle. And so you have to realize that it is wrong. That's not what a human being is supposed to do. And so, if I'm sure somehow, somewhere, it's happening. I hear there's staggering numbers about, people who are in the sex industry, sex, human trafficking industry. And it may not be so obvious to us who it is, I mean, just by looking at someone in the everyday life, because I think obviously people are who are, workers in that industry are making some sort of money, so they could be, be able to buy clothes where they don't necessarily look like they are, you know, kind of a broke down type of person. So it may not be so obvious about who is in that sex trafficking industry. And so, yeah, I think that's just what I wanted to say is, you know, I think there's people who, I think a lot times it's hard to speak up. Like, sometimes when you're with another person, it may be hard to say like, "Hey, I'm going through a problem." Like no one really would say that, I mean, you even notice that in everyday conversation, like you don't really want to like bring up a super big problem to someone. And so I think there people, who are not in that industry and who have a chance to, speak up about it, they need to. And so I think there is problems out there that need to be addressed. And then I think the last thing is, as I guess I say this as a hope, is that, one day Jesus will change this whole entire world. And so I'm sure there are people out there who have been in the sex trafficking industry that have become saved, have Jesus has changed their life. And so there is hope out there. There is a light out there that is shining bright. And Jesus is aware he's not a bad king, he's not a bad ruler. If this is the house, Jesus is not a bad homeowner. He's not taking care of this place poorly. If I've heard that God is smart, like he's beyond smart. And so, and I heard he's good. And so if you think about those things and a homeowner and a person who makes things, I can't imagine that, Jesus is not aware of sex trafficking. And then also, oh, by the way, if he takes ownership, which he does, he says he's the ruler and the king. He's not unaware of the problems that, that happen. Even people, this is the last thing, but even people, even businesses, like when even I work, for my job, like we get kind of like requests for like maintenance, like people want their problem for their home fixed. And so even a business cares about taking care of that problem. Like we as people who are not that good, we're not that good people. And so even we, when a person who is, yes, paying us money, but, they bring up a problem, they bring up some sort of issue, even a business, looks into that problem and says like, oh yeah, let's fix this. Oh, your dishwasher is broken. Yeah, let's get someone out there to fix that. Or, even in, uh, just different scenarios, people do want change. And so there are people who are fixing things out there. And so, I mean, that's just a simple scenario to say that I can imagine that Jesus, if him being so much vastly greater and better and the king of all of us, I'm sure that he is going to take care of these problems that are out there, including sex trafficking. And so, I just want to say, you don't have to go down that road. You shouldn't let sex control you. And I think it's one of those things that it gets out of hand. The Bible says the whole world has gone astray through lust. And one of the definitions of lust is strong sexual desire. And so I think, it just needs to stop. Sex trafficking. Don't give to that industry, you know, in the various ways that they are continuing making money, and speak up for those people who are in that industry. All right, thank you. Have a great day. Bye.